Mia Johnson was an ordinary girl with extraordinary dreams. At just 16 years old, she spent most of her free time sketching in a worn-out notebook that had become her constant companion. Her drawings were filled with vibrant colors and bold lines, each one telling a story only she could fully understand. Art was more than just a hobby for Mia. It was her escape, her voice, and her future. She dreamed of becoming an artist whose work would inspire others, someone who could use creativity to make the world a little brighter. On this particular summer afternoon, Mia left her art class feeling accomplished. The session had gone well, and her teacher had praised her latest piece, a colorful mural design inspired by unity and diversity. As she walked home, her sketchbook tucked securely under her arm, she felt a sense of pride bubbling inside her. The streets of downtown Los Angeles buzzed with life around her. Cars honked, shopkeepers called out to potential customers, and the smell of street food wafted through the air. It was a lively scene, one that Mia loved despite its occasional chaos. To drown out some of the noise, she slipped on her headphones and pressed play on her favorite playlist. Soft melodies filled her ears as she strolled along the sidewalk, humming along absent-mindedly. Her mind wandered to all the possibilities ahead of her, finishing high school, applying to art schools, and maybe even holding her first gallery show someday. Life seemed full of promise, and for those few moments everything felt perfect. But perfection is often fleeting. As Mia turned a corner onto a quieter street lined with small cafes and shops, she noticed a group of bikers gathered near one of the outdoor seating areas. There were about 6 or 7 of them, their leather jackets gleaming in the sunlight. Their motorcycles were parked haphazardly nearby, taking up most of the space meant for pedestrians. They laughed loudly, their voices carrying over the hum of conversation from the cafe patrons seated nearby. Something about the way they carried themselves made Mia uneasy, but she decided not to let it bother her. After all, she was almost home. As she passed by the group, one of the bikers caught sight of her. His name was Jake Lawson, and he wasn't exactly known for being kind or considerate. With his rough appearance and gruff demeanor, Jake commanded attention wherever he went. He leaned back in his chair, his boots propped up on another seat, and smirked as he watched Mia walk by. "Hey, girlie," he called out, his tone dripping with mockery. "Where you headed in such a hurry?" Mia froze mid-step, her heart skipping a beat. She glanced at him briefly before looking away, hoping he'd lose interest if she ignored him. But Jake wasn't the type to be brushed off so easily. He sat up straighter, his smirk widening into a sneer. "What's wrong, cat, got your tongue?" he taunted, leaning forward slightly. His friends chuckled, clearly entertained by his antics. Encouraged by their laughter, Jake stood up and took a step toward Mia, blocking her path. "Come on, don't be shy," he said, his voice louder now. "You look like you got some fire in you." He gestured toward her backpack, which still held her precious sketchbook. "What's in there, huh? Some secret diary or something?" Without waiting for an answer, he reached out and grabbed the strap of her backpack, yanking it off her shoulder with surprising force. Mia stumbled backward, her eyes wide with shock and fear. Her headphones fell from her ears, clattering to the ground, cutting off the music that had been her comfort only moments ago. Jake flipped open the backpack and rummaged through it carelessly, pulling out her sketchbook and flipping through the pages. His friends roared with laughter, egging him on as he mocked her artwork. "What is this crap?" he sneered, holding up a page filled with intricate designs. "Looks like a kid's scribbles." He tossed the sketchbook aside, letting it land in the dirt. Mia's hands trembled as she watched him treat something so important to her with such disdain. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Instead, she clenched her fists tightly, trying to summon the courage to say something, anything to make him stop. But Jake wasn't done yet. He stepped closer to her, invading her personal space. "You think you're too good to talk to us?" he growled, his breath reeking of alcohol. "We're just having a little fun." His words were sharp, cutting deeper than any blade ever could. Mia wanted to run, to scream, to do anything to get away from him, but her feet felt rooted to the spot. All she could do was stand there, paralyzed by fear, as Jake continued his verbal assault. The situation was spiraling out of control, and no one seemed willing to intervene. Passers-by hurried past, avoiding eye contact, while the cafe patrons pretended not to notice what was happening. For Mia, it felt like the entire world had turned its back on her. She was alone, vulnerable, and at the mercy of someone who clearly had no regard for her feelings or her safety. Little did she know, help was closer than she thought. Across the street, two unlikely heroes were about to change the course of her day, and perhaps her life, forever. Unbeknownst to Mia, two men were sitting at a table outside the cafe, quietly enjoying their lunch. They had been there for about 20 minutes, taking a break from a long day of filming. Dwayne, "The Rock" Johnson, and John Cena were both tired, but in good spirits. The sun warmed their faces as they chatted casually about everything from their upcoming movie to their favorite sports teams. Neither of them was paying much attention to the commotion nearby. That is, until Jake Lawson's loud voice broke through the peaceful atmosphere. At first, The Rock thought it was just another loud conversation, something common in busy areas like this. But when he heard Jake's harsh tone and saw the frightened look on Mia's face, his demeanor changed instantly. He turned his head slightly, narrowing his eyes as he observed the scene unfolding only a few feet away. John noticed it too. Both men exchanged a quick glance, silently communicating that something wasn't right. Jake's cruel laughter echoed across the street as he taunted Mia, tossing her belongings onto the ground without a second thought. His friends egged him on, their jeers adding fuel to the fire. The Rock clenched his jaw, his large hands tightening into fists under the table. John leaned forward slightly, his calm expression masking the anger brewing inside him. "This isn't okay," John muttered under his breath, shaking his head. The Rock nodded in agreement, his focus entirely on the young girl standing helplessly in front of Jake. Without saying another word, The Rock pushed his chair back and stood up. At over 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders and a commanding presence, he immediately drew attention. People around the cafe stopped what they were doing to watch as he took a step forward, his movements deliberate and purposeful. John followed suit, rising from his seat with equal determination. Together, the two men walked toward the group of bikers, their expressions serious. As they approached, Jake finally noticed them. For a brief moment, his confidence faltered. After all, it wasn't every day you came face to face with two of the most recognizable figures in entertainment. But Jake quickly recovered, sneering at them as if trying to regain control of the situation. "What's it to you?" he barked, his voice tinged with irritation. His friends fell silent, unsure of how to react. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats while others simply stared, waiting to see what would happen next. The Rock crossed his arms over his chest, his muscular frame casting a shadow over Jake. Despite his imposing size, his voice remained calm and steady. "It's not okay to treat anyone like that," he said firmly, his gaze locked onto Jake's. There was no room for negotiation in his tone, just pure conviction. John stood beside him, his stance relaxed yet alert. When he spoke, his words carried the same weight. "Let her go, now." His voice was quiet but firm, leaving no doubt that he meant business. For a moment, Jake hesitated. He glanced at his friends for support, but none of them moved. One of them even looked away, clearly uncomfortable with the turn of events. Jake tightened his grip on Mia's backpack, his knuckles turning white. He muttered something under his breath, too low for anyone else to hear, but his bravado was starting to crumble. The Rock and John didn't flinch, their unwavering resolve making it clear that they weren't going anywhere until the situation was resolved. Mia, who had been frozen in fear, finally found the courage to take a small step backward. She clutched her sketchbook tightly against her chest, her wide eyes darting between Jake and the two men standing up for her. Tears still glistened in her eyes, but there was a flicker of hope in her expression now. Seeing The Rock and John stand up to Jake made her feel less alone, as though she finally had allies in a moment of despair. Jake, realizing he was outnumbered, not just by the Rock and John, but also by the growing crowd watching the altercation, began to lose his nerve. His earlier bravado gave way to uncertainty as he glanced around nervously. The Rock extended his hand toward Jake, his gesture simple yet powerful. "You don't want any trouble," he warned, his voice low but authoritative. Jake opened his mouth to retort but thought better of it. With a final glare, he dropped the backpack and stormed off, muttering curses under his breath. His friends scrambled to follow him, eager to put distance between themselves and the scene. As Jake disappeared down the street, the tension in the air began to ease. People who had been watching started to applaud, their cheers breaking the silence. Some even approached the Rock and John to thank them for stepping in. But neither man paid much attention to the praise. Their focus remained on Mia, who was now standing alone, trembling, but safe. The Rock knelt down to her level, offering her a reassuring smile. "Are you okay?" he asked gently, his deep voice filled with concern. Mia nodded slowly, though tears still streamed down her cheeks. John picked up her backpack and handed it to her, brushing off the dirt before giving it back. "You handled yourself really well," he told her, his tone kind and encouraging. Despite the chaos that had just unfolded, Mia managed a weak smile. In that moment, she realized she wasn't as powerless as she had felt just minutes ago. Thanks to the Rock and John, she had been given a second chance. A chance to walk away from the incident with her dignity intact. As the two men continued to comfort her, Mia couldn't help but feel grateful for their unexpected intervention. Little did she know, their actions would leave a lasting impact on her life and inspire countless others who would later hear her story. After Jake and his gang had disappeared down the street, the atmosphere began to shift. The tension that had gripped the area moments before slowly melted away, replaced by a sense of relief and admiration. People who had been watching from a distance started to gather around, some clapping softly while others whispered words of gratitude to the Rock and John Cena. A few even took out their phones to capture the moment, snapping photos or recording videos of the two men comforting Mia. But neither Dwayne nor John paid much attention to the growing crowd. Their focus remained entirely on the young girl standing before them. Mia was still shaken, her hands trembling as she clutched her sketchbook tightly against her chest. Tears streaked her face, but she tried hard to blink them away, not wanting to appear weak in front of the two men who had just saved her. The Rock noticed this and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "It's okay to cry," he said softly, his voice warm and reassuring. "You've been through something really tough." His words broke through the walls Mia had built around herself, and she finally let the tears flow freely. For the first time since the incident began, she allowed herself to feel vulnerable, to let someone else see how scared she truly was. John knelt beside her, offering her a small smile. "You're safe now," he told her, his tone calm and steady. "No one is going to hurt you." He glanced at the backpack in her arms, noticing the dirt smudged across its surface. Without hesitation, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a clean handkerchief. "Here," he said, handing it to her. "Use this if you need to." Mia accepted it with a quiet, "Thank you," her voice barely above a whisper. She wiped her eyes carefully, trying to compose herself despite the storm of emotions swirling inside her. The Rock stood up straight, scanning the area to make sure Jake and his friends weren't planning to return. When he was satisfied that the coast was clear, he turned his attention back to Mia. "Do your parents know where you are?" he asked, his brow furrowing slightly with concern. Mia nodded, though her expression revealed uncertainty. I think so," she replied hesitantly. "I told them I'd be home after class." But even as she spoke, doubt crept into her mind. What if they were worried about her? What if they had already called the police, thinking something bad had happened? John seemed to sense her unease. "Let me call them for you," he offered, pulling out his phone. "Just to let them know you're okay." Mia hesitated, unsure whether to accept his help. She didn't want to bother him further, especially after everything he and The Rock had already done for her. But John's kind smile put her at ease. "It's no trouble at all," he assured her. With a grateful nod, Mia gave him her mom's number, watching as he dialed it and stepped aside to have a private conversation. While John made the call, The Rock stayed by Mia's side, keeping her company. He crouched down again, resting his elbows on his knees as he looked at her. "You're incredibly brave, you know that," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "Not everyone would have stood their ground like you did." Mia shook her head quickly, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "I wasn't brave," she mumbled. "I was too scared to move." The Rock chuckled softly, shaking his head. "That's exactly what makes you brave," he explained. "Being scared doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're human. And even when you're afraid, you kept fighting. That takes courage." His words struck a chord deep within Mia. For so long she had doubted herself, wondering if she was strong enough to pursue her dreams or stand up for what she believed in. But hearing The Rock speak about bravery in such a simple yet profound way made her realize something important. Strength isn't about never feeling fear. It's about pushing forward despite it. She looked up at him, her eyes shining with newfound determination. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice steadier now. "For everything." John returned a few minutes later, slipping his phone back into his pocket. "Your mom knows you're safe," he told Mia with a reassuring smile. "She's on her way to pick you up, just to be sure." Relief washed over Mia's face and she exhaled deeply, as though a heavy weight had been lifted off her shoulders. "Thank you," she said again, this time addressing both men. "I don't know what I would have done without you." The Rock grinned, his trademark charisma lighting up his features. "Hey, we couldn't just sit there and do nothing," he said with a shrug. "Besides, standing up for people is what anyone should do." John nodded in agreement, adding, "We're glad we could help. Just promise us one thing, okay?" Mia tilted her head curiously, prompting him to continue. "Promise us you won't let anyone make you feel small," he said firmly. "Because you're worth so much more than that." Mia felt a lump form in her throat as she absorbed his words. No one had ever spoken to her with such kindness and conviction before. It was as if The Rock and John saw something in her that she hadn't fully recognized in herself. A spark of potential, a glimmer of greatness waiting to shine. She swallowed hard, blinking back fresh tears. "I promise," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. As they waited for Mia's mom to arrive, The Rock and John stayed close, ensuring she felt protected and supported. They talked to her about lighter topics, her love for art, her favorite movies, and even her dream of attending an art school someday. Their genuine interest put her at ease, helping her forget, if only for a little while, the ordeal she had just endured. By the time her mom pulled up in a silver sedan, Mia was smiling faintly, her earlier fear replaced by a sense of hope. Her mom rushed out of the car, her face etched with worry. "Mia!" she exclaimed, wrapping her daughter in a tight hug. "Are you all right? What happened?" Mia hugged her back, feeling safe in her mother's embrace. "I'm okay, Mom," she reassured her. "These guys helped me." Her mom turned to The Rock and John, her eyes wide with gratitude. "Thank you," she said earnestly, her voice breaking slightly. "Thank you for looking out for my daughter." Rock smiled warmly, giving her a slight nod. "It was our pleasure," he replied. John echoed his sentiment, adding, "Take good care of her." As Mia and her mom prepared to leave, Mia turned back one last time to look at the two men who had changed her day, and perhaps her life, forever. The Rock waved goodbye, his broad smile radiating positivity, while John gave her a thumbs up, his signature gesture. "Stay strong, Mia," he called out as they got into the car. As the sedan drove away, The Rock and John stood side by side, watching until it disappeared from view. Neither of them said anything for a moment, both lost in thought. Finally, John broke the silence. "You think she'll be okay?" he asked, his tone thoughtful. The Rock nodded confidently. "Yeah, I do," he replied. "She's got fight in her. You can see it in her eyes." John smiled faintly, agreeing with his friend. "Good," he said simply. "That's all we can ask for." Little did they know, their actions that day would ripple far beyond the streets of Los Angeles. News of the incident spread quickly, thanks to the bystanders who had captured videos and shared them online. Within hours, social media platforms were flooded with posts praising The Rock and John Cena for their heroism. People everywhere marveled at how two celebrities had taken time out of their busy schedules to stand up for a stranger in need. For Mia, however, the impact went deeper than fame or recognition. In that brief encounter, she had learned lessons about bravery, kindness, and the power of standing up for others, lessons that would stay with her for the rest of her life. The days following the incident felt surreal for Mia. What had started as an ordinary afternoon walking home from art class had turned into a moment that would shape her life in ways she never could have imagined. Her mom had been incredibly supportive, hugging her tightly when they got home and making sure she felt safe and loved. They talked late into the night, with Mia sharing every detail of what had happened, from Jake's cruel taunts to The Rock and John Cena stepping in to protect her. Her mom listened intently, holding back tears as she reassured Mia that she was strong and brave. But it wasn't just her family who noticed the change in Mia. Her friends at school saw it too. When she returned to class on Monday, word had already spread about what had happened. Some students approached her cautiously, asking if the stories were true. Others simply gave her knowing looks or offered quiet words of encouragement. At first, Mia didn't know how to respond. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially not for something so personal. But as the days went by, she began to open up more, sharing bits and pieces of her story with those closest to her. Her art teacher, Mrs. Alvarez, also played a key role in helping Mia process everything. During one of their private sessions, Mrs. Alvarez gently asked if Mia wanted to create something inspired by her experience. "Art can be a powerful way to heal," she explained. "Sometimes putting your feelings onto paper helps you understand them better." At first, Mia hesitated. The thought of revisiting that day made her uneasy. But after some encouragement, she decided to give it a try. What started as a simple sketch soon evolved into a vibrant mural design. Using bold colors and striking imagery, Mia depicted two towering figures standing protectively over a young girl. The figures weren't exact replicas of The Rock and John Cena. They were more symbolic, representing strength, kindness, and courage. Surrounding them were swirling patterns of light and dark, symbolizing the chaos and fear she had felt versus the hope and safety she eventually found. When she finally finished the piece, Mia stepped back and stared at it in awe. It was unlike anything she had ever created before, a raw emotional expression of gratitude and resilience. Meanwhile, news of the incident continued to spread far beyond Mia's small circle. Videos captured by bystanders had gone viral online, sparking conversations across social media platforms. People everywhere praised The Rock and John Cena for their actions, calling them real-life heroes. Comments poured in from fans around the world, many expressing admiration for how the two men had used their influence to stand up for someone in need. Some even shared their own stories of encountering bullying or discrimination, thanking Mia for speaking out and inspiring others to do the same. For The Rock and John Cena, the response was overwhelming but humbling. Both men had always believed in using their platform to promote positivity and kindness, but they hadn't expected this level of impact. In interviews and posts on their social media accounts, they emphasized the importance of standing up for others, no matter how big or small the act might seem. "It's not about fame or recognition," The Rock said during one interview. "It's about doing the right thing, even when it's hard. We all have the power to make a difference." John echoed his sentiments, adding, "You don't have to be a celebrity to be a hero. Heroes are people who choose to care, who step up when someone is hurting. That's what we did, and I hope it encourages others to do the same." Their words resonated deeply with audiences, igniting a wave of inspiration that rippled through communities worldwide. Schools began incorporating discussions about allyship and empathy into their curriculums, using the incident as a teaching moment. Parents talked to their children about the importance of treating others with respect and standing up against injustice. Even local organizations dedicated to combating bullying and racism saw an increase in support, with donations pouring in and volunteers signing up to help. For Mia, seeing the widespread impact of her story was both surprising and empowering. At first, she felt uncomfortable being in the spotlight, worried that people might judge her or think she was seeking attention. But as time went on, she realized that her experience had the potential to inspire change, and that was something worth embracing. With her mom's encouragement, she decided to share her artwork online, posting photos of her mural along with a heartfelt message about her journey. "I never thought something so scary could lead to something so beautiful," she wrote. "Thank you to everyone who has shown me love and support. And thank you to the Rock and John Cena for reminding me that there are still good people in the world." The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people liked, shared, and commented on her post, praising her talent and courage. Many reached out privately to share their own struggles, finding comfort in knowing they weren't alone. Artists from different parts of the globe sent messages of solidarity, offering tips and advice to help Mia grow in her craft. Some even invited her to collaborate on projects, giving her opportunities she had only dreamed of before. Through it all, Mia remained grounded, leaning on her family and friends for support. She knew that while her story had touched many lives, it was ultimately hers to carry. The lessons she had learned, from the pain of fear to the power of kindness, would stay with her forever, shaping the person she was becoming. And though she couldn't erase what had happened that day, she chose to focus on the positives, the strangers who had become heroes, the community that had rallied around her, and the newfound belief in herself as someone capable of making a difference. As weeks turned into months, Mia continued to pour her heart into her art, using it as a tool to connect with others and spread messages of hope and unity. She submitted her mural design to a local youth art competition, where it earned first place and caught the eye of a gallery owner. Impressed by her talent and vision, the owner offered Mia a chance to display her work in an upcoming exhibition. It was a dream come true, and Mia accepted with gratitude, knowing it was just the beginning of her journey. Looking back, Mia often thought about the Rock and John Cena, not just for what they had done for her, but for what they represented. They reminded her that even in moments of darkness, there are always people willing to stand up for what's right. They taught her that bravery isn't about being fearless, it's about choosing to act despite your fears. And most importantly, they showed her that kindness has the power to transform lives, including her own. Though their paths may never cross again, Mia carried their actions with her every day, letting them guide her as she navigated the challenges and triumphs of growing up. She vowed to pay it forward, to be the kind of person who stood up for others just as they had stood up for her. Because in the end, that's what true heroes do. They inspire others to rise above, to find strength in vulnerability, and to believe in the goodness of humanity, even when the odds feel stacked against them. As the months passed, Mia's life began to transform in ways she could never have predicted. Her mural, once a personal expression of gratitude and resilience, became a symbol of hope for countless others. The gallery exhibition where her work was displayed drew large crowds, with people traveling from different parts of the city and even neighboring states to see it. Parents brought their children, teachers organized field trips, and local news outlets covered the event, highlighting Mia's story as an example of courage and creativity. Standing in front of her mural on the opening night, Mia felt a mix of emotions. She was proud of what she had created, but she also felt humbled by the outpouring of support she received. Strangers approached her to share how her story had inspired them. One woman told Mia that her teenage daughter, who had been struggling with bullying at school, found strength in knowing they weren't alone. A young boy handed her a drawing he had made, saying he wanted to be an artist like her when he grew up. These moments stayed with Mia, reminding her of the ripple effect kindness could create. The Rock and John Cena followed Mia's journey from afar, keeping tabs on her progress through social media and interviews. They were genuinely moved by how far she had come since that fateful day. When they heard about the gallery exhibition, both men reached out to congratulate her. The Rock sent her a heartfelt message, praising her talent and thanking her for using her voice to inspire others. "You're proof that art can change the world," he wrote. John went a step further, surprising Mia with a video call during one of his breaks on set. He spent nearly an hour talking to her, sharing advice about pursuing her dreams and encouraging her to keep pushing forward, despite any obstacles she might face. Their continued support meant the world to Mia. It wasn't just about their fame or influence. It was about the genuine care they showed for someone they barely knew. Their actions reminded her that true heroes aren't defined by capes or titles, but by the impact they have on others' lives. Inspired by their example, Mia decided to use her platform to give back. She started volunteering at community centers, teaching art classes to underprivileged kids and encouraging them to express themselves through creativity. She also partnered with anti-bullying organizations, speaking at schools and events about her experience and the importance of standing up for one another. Her efforts didn't go unnoticed. Local newspapers featured articles about her advocacy work, calling her a role model for young people everywhere. Teachers praised her for being a beacon of positivity, while students looked up to her as someone who had faced adversity and emerged stronger. Even Jake Lawson's name faded into obscurity, overshadowed by the light Mia brought into the world. Though she never sought revenge or held bitterness toward him, Mia couldn't help but feel a sense of closure knowing that his actions had inadvertently led to something beautiful. One evening, as Mia sat in her room sketching new ideas for her next project, her mom knocked softly on the door before stepping inside. "There's someone here to see you," she said with a smile. Curious, Mia followed her downstairs to find none other than the Rock and John Cena waiting in their living room. Both men stood up as she entered, grinning widely. "We figured it was time we met your mom," The Rock joked, shaking hands with Mia's mother. John added, "And we wanted to see this amazing artist in person." Mia was speechless, her heart racing with excitement. She had dreamed of meeting them again, but she never imagined they would show up at her house. Over dinner, they talked about everything, from Mia's recent projects to their own experiences growing up and chasing their dreams. The conversation flowed naturally, filled with laughter and shared wisdom. At one point, The Rock leaned forward, his expression serious, yet warm. "You've got something special, Mia," he said. "Don't ever let anyone dim your light." John nodded in agreement, adding, "The world needs more people like you, people who turn pain into purpose." By the end of the night, Mia felt a renewed sense of determination. Having The Rock and John Cena in her home, not as celebrities, but as mentors and friends, solidified her belief that she was capable of achieving greatness. They promised to stay in touch, offering to help her however they could as she pursued her goals. Before leaving, The Rock gave her a hug, whispering words of encouragement. "Keep shining, kid," he said. "You're already making waves." In the weeks that followed, Mia threw herself into her work with even more passion. She began collaborating with other artists, creating pieces that celebrated diversity, unity, and resilience. Her murals appeared on walls throughout the city, each one telling a story of hope and empowerment. People stopped to admire her art, snapping photos and leaving notes of gratitude. Some even left flowers or small tokens of appreciation at the base of her murals, turning them into makeshift memorials of kindness. Her growing reputation caught the attention of a major art foundation, which offered her a scholarship to attend a prestigious art school. It was a dream come true, and Mia accepted without hesitation. On her first day of classes, she walked into the studio with her head held high, ready to learn and grow alongside fellow artists who shared her passion. Her professors quickly recognized her unique perspective and encouraged her to push boundaries, challenging her to explore new techniques and styles. Throughout it all, Mia remained grounded, never forgetting where she came from or the lessons she had learned along the way. She kept a photo of The Rock and John Cena on her phone, a reminder of the day two strangers changed her life forever. Whenever she faced self-doubt or uncertainty, she looked at that picture and remembered their words. Be brave. Be kind. Make a difference. Years later, Mia stood on a stage, accepting an award for her contributions to the arts and her advocacy work. As she gazed out at the audience, she spotted familiar faces in the crowd. Her mom, Mrs. Alvarez, and yes, even the Rock and John Cena, who had flown in to celebrate her achievement. Tears welled up in her eyes as she began her speech. "I never thought I'd be here today," she admitted, her voice steady despite the emotion in her heart. "But I know I wouldn't be if it weren't for the people who believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." She went on to thank everyone who had supported her journey, saving her final words for The Rock and John Cena. "You taught me that heroes aren't just in movies, they're real people who choose to stand up for what's right. You showed me the power of kindness and the importance of using my voice to make a difference. Because of you, I found my own strength. And because of you, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be the kind of person who inspires others the way you inspired me." The audience erupted into applause, rising to their feet as Mia stepped off the stage. The Rock and John Cena greeted her with open arms, pulling her into a group hug. "We're so proud of you," John said, his voice thick with emotion. The Rock nodded, adding, "You're living proof that good things happen when we lift each other up." As Mia embraced them, she realized that her journey wasn't just about her. It was about the connections she had made, the lives she had touched, and the legacy she hoped to leave behind. She had started as a scared girl on a lonely street, but she had grown into a confident artist and advocate, determined to spread light in a world that sometimes felt dark. And though she still faced challenges, she knew she wasn't alone. She carried with her the lessons of bravery, kindness, and resilience, not just for herself, but for everyone she hoped to inspire. Because in the end, every act of courage, no matter how small, has the power to spark change. And Mia Johnson, with her art and her heart, was proof of that.